Good morning, everybody. My name is Jason Fedell, VP of Sales with Confianz. So I want to take this time to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us for this exciting webinar, really highlighting the Acumatica Construction ERP, and at the end of the day, how it can streamline and run your business more efficiently. So I know we have some folks still filing in, but out of respect for your time, we'll go ahead and get started. Just a few housekeeping items. All attendees will be on mute. We definitely encourage you to enter your questions in the chat as the presentation goes on, as the demo goes on. There is an allotted time at the end for us to address those questions. And also, you will receive a recording of this webinar after it concludes. So we'll be sending you a copy of that and then following up accordingly. So definitely encourage you to ask questions throughout. Again, just type them in the chat. All attendees are on mute, but I'll go ahead and jump into it. So thank you again for your time. Let's take a quick look at the agenda and what we'll be focusing on today. Just give me 1 second here. So, first we're going to start off with introductions and an overview. Next, I'm going to pass it over to Mike Duberstein. He'll be driving the demo portion of the webinar. So very excited to see that in action, all of the functionality, how it can help your business and streamline operations across the board. And then lastly, that last 10 minutes or so, that's where we'll be fielding the Q&A and so forth. So without further ado, I'll jump into it. Again, my name is Jason Fedell. I am the Vice President of Sales here at Confianz Global. Been with the company for about 4.5 years. We also have Mike, who I mentioned is our Senior Solutions Engineer. He'll be driving the demo portion of the call. And then our CEO is on the call as well, Anoop Menon, and he'll be chiming in later as need be. So again, thanks for joining. We are excited to get started here. So, who is Confianz? I just wanted to provide some high-level information regarding us as a company and really where we come from and why we chose to partner with Acumatica, right? So we started back in 2008, really implementing ERPs. That's really the core of our business. That's really the kind of our bread and butter, if you will. We do have 60+ clients, but really one thing I want you to take away from this is our retention rate. Typically, when a customer comes on board, they're with us. It's a long-term partnership because at the end of the day, an ERP should run your business for the next 5-10 years. So having that long-term relationship really goes a long way. And you want a partner that you can trust, who's going to ultimately set you up for success, right? So, we've completed 100 projects. We're a certified Acumatica partner. And, really today, what we're going to be focusing on the construction side for Acumatica, I'll just do a quick run through of this, but, dashboards in real time. These are important, to help you run your business efficiently, to help increase transparency. So really the dashboards, in my experience, it helps keep projects on time, really provides a lot of insight to PMs, supervisors, subcontractors, and customers all on the same page, Another thing is, Acumatica really does grow with your business. So it's highly scalable. So as, you grow as an organization, as you add more employees, Acumatica really scales with your business. So at the end of the day, it's a great tool to kind of help grow your business and ultimately drive efficiency across the board. Another thing we're going to be focusing on is, full transparency and flexibility. So, a lot of C-level folks want to know what's going on a day-to-day basis. This is really where the dashboards come into play, to have that visibility, to have that transparency. And we have a lot of use cases that we're going to show you today and really how that can benefit your organization at the end of the day. And last but not least, a lot of folks these days in my conversation, everyone's using disparate systems, right? Excel sheets here, another system here. So we're going to talk about how the power of Acumatica can truly consolidate those into one ERP, to really help you, to give you time back to your day, as well as, increase efficiency across the board. So I'm not a big PowerPoint slide guy. I believe in death by PowerPoint. So this is a good segue to pass it over to Mike, who's going to be leading the construction demo. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and I'll let Mike take the steering wheel, guys.
Great. All right. I'm going to share the screen now. All right. So, as Jason alluded to, we're going to spend a good amount of time talking about dashboards today, which is a really powerful feature that is present within Acumatica. What we'll be doing is exploring the different use cases for all of these different dashboards and talking through how that could apply across multiple different roles within Acumatica, starting at a high level and then continuing down. Now, for me, I've heard dashboards a lot throughout my career in construction. I actually was an end user for a while. And now that I've been working as a solution engineer in Acumatica for a good amount of time, dashboards are kind of commonplace for me, but that wasn't always the case for me in the roles that I've sat in as an end user from a construction perspective. So it's easy for me to think everyone's got dashboards, and dashboards are not that impressive, and that in an evaluation that's just a given that everyone has them. So why is this even worth discussing for us for the majority of an hour of a webinar? Well, interestingly, I think a lot of that has to do with the history of where dashboards have been in the construction industry across a bunch of products that have been existing for a long time, and what that has looked like in practice. So, the dashboard that you all see in front of you today, it really hasn't looked like this for very long in the construction industry, with a bunch of aggregated data clean in one place. I started working in the mid-2010s out of college for a general contractor that was using a legacy construction system, and they didn't have dashboards whatsoever. And many of the older construction-oriented accounting packages don't tend to have dashboards whatsoever. Folks that are on QuickBooks Online, or QuickBooks Desktop are really not going to have dashboards built in, at least in a construction-specific environment. And for the longest time, what settled for dashboards in the construction industry was something like this, something that was built in crystal reports that would essentially just show pie charts, line charts, maybe totals for jobs by month, and those types of things. And crystal reports was a powerful tool for developing and reporting on data, but there were problems with it. One, you had to be a technical expert to use it, so you needed a consultant to be able to create these types of things, to get intelligence about how things were going within your business whatsoever. And then it wasn't really very easy to change unless you were a consultant that had written crystal reports in the past. A lot of CFOs I talk to these days that are in the construction industry, actually, as more than a hobby, are now like crystal reports experts, because they didn't want to constantly be getting people to write reports for them. So they're very familiar with this tool, which is funny because a lot of CFOs tend not to be as hands-on in building these things. But these folks, because they really needed to see the lifeblood of their organization, became very proficient in crystal reports and building things like this. But again, the reports themselves, they're PDFs. They're not drillable. Once they're run, they're historical. They're not constantly live, and they're not tweakable or dynamic whatsoever. So this is what passed for dashboards for the longest time in the construction industry, which I think you guys will all agree, just looking even before we talk about what this is, this has changed a lot. Now, in between here and the Crystal Reports era, we saw the advent of people using tools like Power BI and specific tools to bring from their SQL database the data and aggregate that in an environment where they could get a little bit more intelligence. Now you can see here, this is a much more elegant look at the lifeblood of your company, and it was totally customizable and more intuitive, I guess I would say, than Crystal Reports was. But at the same time, when you're doing something like this in a BI environment, that's not drillable at all either. You can see data the way you want and maybe slice and dice it. But if you're trying to go back to look at a specific journal entry or an AP bill or a project or a specific change order, you're not going to be able to do that from a BI environment. So this is a good step in the right direction, I would say. But the ability to use dashboards for more than analytics as a productivity tool is really where Acumatica can differentiate itself. Besides the fact that even within these dashboards, as you see here, when I click new widget, Power BI tile is something that we can leverage. So if you like Power BI and you like the analytic side of what is present within Power BI, you don't have to sacrifice that. It's not a one or the other. You can have your cake and eat it too. And we also see folks blending multiple data sources in Power BI from, like, if they're using a purpose-built solution like Procore, or something that is built for construction, and they want to aggregate that data and embed it, we can blend data in Power BI and then embed it right here in Acumatica, so that you're able to see things that are being done in Power BI environment without ever having to leave this home screen of Acumatica. So Acumatica is the culmination of the journey that dashboards have been on since, really the 90s and 80s, when Crystal Reports was the Procore of reporting, I guess is what I would call it. And these days, things have changed a lot, where we can really gain a lot of productivity and efficiency through dashboards. So
Mike, so I know that a lot of people are using dashboards. Really, how is Acumatica different? What would you say? A couple highlights there.
Well, it's a great question. I'd say that looking at these dashboards, using them as a productivity tool is a big difference, and the ability to design them for yourselves is a big difference. I've seen, some of the other legacy solutions, they'll have dashboards in them, but it will be like they'll have sat back in their main office and thought, like, what would a CFO be interested in? And then, like, if you are interested in that, great. But if you wanted to change it, you're out of luck, because the structure of the database with those legacy systems isn't such that you really can easily tweak dashboards and all of that. So the ability to customize that in one place is a big difference with Acumatica, and the productivity element that we'll see in just a little bit is a big difference with Acumatica as well.
Great.
So looking at this CFO dashboard, a couple of things that are important to note are that in Acumatica's demo environment, this is not a dashboard that exists whatsoever. There is a controller dashboard that is built for more generic purposes and isn't quite as construction focused. And construction is my lifeblood. That's what I demo to the companies I talk to every day. That's the industry I come from. It's what I like. It's what I'm most comfortable with. And so I had the ability to say, you know what, Acumatica's controller dashboard is not cutting it for me. I don't really care to see how many open sales orders there are. Let me go ahead and hit this design button and create a dashboard that is specific for a construction CFO, as opposed to just a general controller. Now, it's important to note, Acumatica is an industry agnostic solution. So when I say that there is a controller dashboard that aggregates data for sales orders, That's because the system itself has sales orders, it has manufacturing, it has e-commerce capabilities, and it has industry addition. So it's built for construction, but if you do anything unique where you need to do sales orders, or maybe you do some type of prefab, you can do that without having to go to a third party. So it really benefits those construction companies with unique and traditionally non-construction elements. But it is also suited for pure construction, and that's what this dashboard is showing. So you can see here, this is giving me a couple of different sections here aggregated in the context of this one dashboard. I've got cash, personnel, including payroll information, and projects right here on one screen. I don't have to be limited by looking at the data for one specific module and only have a dashboard for that specific thing, and then have to hop around to different dashboards to be able to see the things that are pertinent to me. No, I can go in and hit this design button like I've done a couple of times and say, you know what? I want to go in and put a pivot table, which I can embed natively within the system, or embed a page and then grab the source from a data table within Acumatica very easily, which will then allow me to blend data from everywhere that I'm operating within the system. I also have the ability to drill in. So it isn't just showing me dashboards and reports. I can click in on Open AR, and it's going to bring me to a customer summary of all of what is aggregating this 8.25 Open AR at this top level. And now I can go in and see, okay, for each of my customers, what does that actually mean? And I could even sort by ascending or descending to say, all right, this Belrose Storage Group, they're at over 15 million. Maybe I want to take a look at them in a little bit more detail and follow up on them. Well, guess what? I can click into that customer ID, and now I've gotten all of their invoices that I can act on. I could even go into these invoices and send this out to them. I could talk to a customer account manager. I could send them an email directly from here, assign tasks for follow-up to an AR clerk, but I can take action. And remember, I'm doing that from 2 clicks away from this dashboard. So I'm monitoring the lifeblood of AR here just by looking at how this is aggregating. Then within 2 clicks, I can direct someone to follow up or follow up myself. I also have the ability to set thresholds so that I don't even have to use my brain to figure out what the lifeblood of the company is telling me. If there is a normal level and an alarm level and a warning level that you want to put in place here, you can draw your eye to things that you want to monitor more often than not, or see quickly. So if AR should be below 5 million at any time, I can have that pop up as red because it's 8, and it could be green or yellow if it was under that threshold amount. So using the color coding and that type of filtering and conditional aspects to draw your eye to what's important can really help you see what action you should take as you log into the system. I also have more than just KPIs. You know, I have these line charts and bar charts and stacked columns and all of those. And this is a very common element of implementation, is working through what do you want to see on a dashboard and being able to see that very easily. I also have the ability to see like something like this CFMA dashboard, which will allow me to compare myself against my peers to say, you know, given the ratios that I've submitted for my benchmark with CFMA, how do I compare with my peers? Now you can see this is a static screenshot. I don't actually have a CFMA benchmark membership myself, but Acumatica will aggregate this data and give you your ratios compared to your peers in your specific industry or in your region. And that's an integration. So you don't even have to submit to the benchmark and compile that. If you have been doing that in the past, you can have that automatically compile the data, and then you get a chance to compare how you're doing with your peers here live.
I get it. That looks great. You know, that is kind of high level. I'd love to see a little more, Mike.
Yeah, you're not impressed yet, Jason?
Not yet. You got me going. You got me engaged.
So this executive dashboard is, I think, a really interesting thing. But to your point, if you want to manage stuff a little bit more granularly, this project analysis dashboard is kind of a blend between a productivity tool and a reporting tool. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So this is aggregating things even regardless of project, right? Like you're seeing total AR. You're seeing what's my average WIP adjustment in a given month? What's my current project backlog? But this is across the whole company consolidated. So if you're a GC that is running a commercial and a residential division, this is not doing much except for rolling all of that up into one place. But with this project analysis dashboard, I can change my project type, for instance, and now all of a sudden I'm showing the all the projects that are related to my commercial projects right here in one fell swoop, and aggregating things like what's my average gross profit across those types of commercial projects. And now that I'm looking at residential ones, when I click on that, how do I compare? Oh, it looks like our gross profit is actually lower for residential than commercial. So that gives me something to talk to the leadership team about during our next job cost review. Why is that the case, right? And maybe you know that off the top of your head. Maybe this confirms something intuitively that you already know about your business. But to be able to aggregate this information and say, you know what, like categorically, from a project type perspective, we're doing better from a gross profit perspective with commercial than residential, is something that Acumatica won't make you guess at. We can set up the system so you can actually have evidence that shows you that information just by selecting a different dropdown. You can also see the status of things like your profit by project at a more project specific level. So not aggregated at a top level like this, but more at a list where I can see what's originally budgeted versus the revised estimate with gross profit percentage and all of that. So you get a breakdown detail of your active projects if you want to see that. Also your costs by projects. And remember, I'm not running a single job cost report so far. We're just looking at how this data is being rendered at a high level, looking at the projects and seeing how they aggregate. So I can see my revised estimate and my cost to date and my remaining estimate and the percentage and all of that. And again, with that same principle of hitting the design button, this can be a list of whatever I want it to be. It doesn't have to be just this stuff. If there's specific details that you might want to see and you want to see it grouped by a project type, we can very easily do that. But we also can do multiple different types of filters, and this again is user definable. So this is the next level of paring your data down within your dashboards. Project type as an example, if I wanted to pare this down just by one specific project and zoom in on that, I could do that. By a project manager, by a region, by certified or uncertified projects, really, you name it. The beautiful thing about Acumatica is that it doesn't force you to, use dimensions or anything like that to do these filters. Any type of data field that you have in the system, you can use as a parameter for filtering the whole dashboard by that. So even if you are live in Acumatica and then 5 years later, you add a commercial division, whereas before you'd just been mixed use, we don't need to revise the setup of anything in the system. We'll just add a tag to that project. And now we can monitor that in a really intelligent way, the same way that we're monitoring the other aspects of your business. So you name it in terms of how you'd want to filter this, even by branch, because you can have multiple branches or departments, multiple entities within this system. If you do have multiple entities, you could filter all of this information by that and see at that more high level how you're performing in each of those areas. But this project analysis dashboard is more than just analytics. I had mentioned this is the blending of analytics and productivity. And you could see that is starting to be the case because look at this, like my change order log. What are my change orders that are associated with my commercial contracts? And what's the status of them? And I can obviously, do some filtering here and sorting to see the ones that are approved. And I could even filter out the approved ones so that I'm only seeing the revised and pending ones. And same with my RFIs. So if I wanted to see like what are my unanswered RFIs here, I can very easily see that just by looking and having it filtered out, not just looking at gross profit and percentage of completion and all of that, but like what are the actual action items associated with this project and what needs to be done. This is great for supervisors, folks that are department heads. It's great for project managers so that they can look at multiple projects in one fell swoop. And it is it's a nice blending of both productivity as well as things like monitoring your change orders, looking at your approvals that are here. What are my tasks and things that have been assigned to me that I want to follow up on here? Really, really good for blending that data in multiple different ways. And just being able to monitor multiple projects at one time. One other thing I'll mention on this is the ability to not just have these dashboard items, but to drill in and not just on something like this average gross profit that we were looking at, where it will take us to that list just like AR invoices did. But we actually have the ability within Acumatica to define where these hyperlinks take us to. So, this is a very clickable dashboard, which is the antithesis of what I was talking about with Crystal Reports and BI. But more than just being clickable, if you sit down there and if you sit down with our implementation team and say, from this project analysis dashboard, we really want the folks that are going to be viewing this to see X, Y, and Z within a single click when they click on this column, we can actually program Acumatica to follow that path. So in this case, my revised estimate, I believe I have this one program to take me to that project budget. And that was not inherent in what Acumatica was doing natively. That's me having way too much time on my hands and deciding to work a little bit late and put that in the system because I thought it was cool. But again, like that's robust functionality, but it makes it simple for your users to click in and get to stuff that they want to see. So, whether it's detailed or more high level, managing multiple different projects at once is what the project analysis dashboard and things like this give you the ability to do.
Very cool. Well, Mike, question. What about for the people who want to accomplish tasks day to day? Could you drill down on that a little bit more?
Man, you're tough to please, Jason. I figured that this one right here, the project analysis dashboard, you'd be like, I'm all in, but you want to see accomplishing tasks too, huh?
Why not? Why not?
Well, I've got a good answer for you there. I'm glad you brought it up. So we do have a really good way for people to actually just stay on top of their tasks on a day-to-day basis. Folks that don't really need this type of analysis as much, but just need to actually be like, what's on my plate? What do I need to accomplish? Now, I have a couple good examples of this. My project manager dashboard, which is much more task-oriented. You can see here, we do have some cost-oriented stuff, but it's not aggregating gross profit or anything like that. It's showing me things like late project tasks and what are my approvals and my RFIs and my issues. What I wanted to point out a bit about this, I know there is some similarity here to the project analysis dashboard, but you'll notice that there's no filtering here. That's because it's doing something really cool behind the scenes, and it's looking at the administrator or the person that's logged into the system and dynamically filtering this project manager dashboard by their specific projects. So we can use Acumatica's dashboard functionality to create multiple dashboards by just creating one. If you have a team of 5, 10, 50 project managers, it doesn't matter. If you have a particular way you want them to be looking at their projects, you can create that project dashboard once, and then create a dynamic filter to look at the user that's logged in. And now they're not going to see everyone's, they're just going to see theirs. And that gives them the ability to go in and say, okay, what are my project issues, regardless if it's residential or commercial or any of those disciplines? What are my open tasks? What are projects that I'm potentially having issues with? What are the change orders that are open across all of my projects? So this will give you the ability as a project manager to be a little bit more task oriented and just look at how this will work and use this as essentially like a homepage as a project manager to then click in and say, okay, my overdue tasks, again, this is drillable. It's going to take me to that list of items for me to accomplish and keep me on task for the day. But I also, for someone that's processing AP, often and doing those types of things, you can see I have a pretty nice AP clerk dashboard that's going to show documents that are on hold, things I need to release, bills here to pay. I've heard a statistic, and I'll be curious if folks in the chat agree with this or not. But I've heard a statistic that it said that if you walk away from your computer and come back, it takes 22 and a half minutes to refocus and pick up on where you left off. I don't know if that's the truth or not. For me, it sometimes has felt longer. But when you have a dashboard here that shows you and draws your eye to the things that's most important for you, it'll give you the ability to refocus on the stuff that's important, whether or not it's where you were working last time. You can bring your attention to the things that are most important for you. Okay, maybe I ought to actually go in and release these documents, or maybe I got to look at the AP that's overdue and look at the PO receipts, or all of those types of things. So the ability to use this as a homepage for what my personal responsibilities are is a really great application of this system. And it will definitely help people refocus on what they're looking to do day to day, and hopefully cut down on that time from 22 and a half minutes to 2.5 minutes or less, because they'll see what their responsibilities are and the things that are important for them very often as well. The other thing from like a AP bill and a project management perspective is this will give us the ability not just to see what's on our plate, but to really help and keep things from falling through the cracks, where you don't have to worry about like, okay, well, I need to go in and look at my list of AP bills and monitor all the ones that are open, or look at my reports, which, by the way, there's a bunch of AP reports. So yeah, like if you have an AP clerk that loves running an aging report and all of that, certainly they can. Dashboards are not the only reporting and metric and productivity tool in Acumatica. Far from it, actually. But if traditionally folks are using these types of reports, it's easier for things to fall through the cracks, which can, if you have a sub that doesn't get included in a pay run because something fell through the cracks, that can damage your relations with that sub. And if you have a criteria here, which is, again, user definable to monitor those types of things, even to like show subcontracts that don't have a pay app associated with them for a given period, you could have a KPI like that shows, hey, this sub is open. We've already gotten a bill from them and they haven't submitted one for this month. Let's reach out and encourage them to submit so they can be included in the next pay run. Those types of things, more than productivity, can really help with relationships that you have, and not just keep things that are in the system from falling through the cracks, but things that aren't even in the system yet. As long as you can define those criteria, we can keep those things from falling through the cracks as well.
Very cool. Very cool. No, thanks for elaborating on that. What about for those folks who may hate technology? For example, while my mom's not in the construction business, I got a phone call from her last week asking how to delete more than one email at a time. Is it, do you need to be tech savvy to utilize this, or is there, is it pretty user friendly from what I'm seeing?
First off, Jason, are our moms related? Because I got a very similar call from her. That's a constant question that I'm getting asked by her. And scarier, part of her job requires like being on a computer all the time. So I don't know how she's handling productivity. She's clearly not using Acumatica. But yeah, even for folks like our moms, we can use this as a way to help them be better at their jobs. Even something like this, like an AP clerk. If you have someone that is intimidated by technology, something like this could totally look overwhelming to them. I get that. This for me is super exciting. Like I would have killed for something like this when I was an administrator for a construction company. But Jason, to your point, you're right. Not everyone is cut from the same cloth. Folks are kind of used to the same processes that they have, and they don't want to have their lives upended and shaken up too much, especially if they're nearing retirement. And so there are some ways that we can actually leverage Acumatica to make their lives even easier. First and foremost, I have this construction foreman dashboard, just limiting the items that are present here, right? Just because there's dashboards in the system, it doesn't mean that we have to use them in such a over the top way. I'll be the first to raise my hand and admit I'm a nerd. I totally geek out with the dashboard functionality in Acumatica. I love it. And it's something that I spend a lot of time on. My wife will be like, "Hey, are you going to come hang out?" I'll be like, "Just after I finish this dashboard item." But not everyone's like me. Some folks will even like these types of things, these KPIs and items to approve, but they just want it to be bigger. They want it to be less items, only the 3 to 5 things that they care about that will help keep them productive. So that's one methodology, is to just limit the amount of things on a dashboard, and make this their homepage rather than making it like a metrics evaluation perspective. This can even keep them from safety issues and quality issues, having to navigate to project issues to see what those are. That might be too many clicks for someone that is like our moms. But having that render here on a dashboard will definitely help them save on clicks to get to an answer like that. So using this as a homepage methodology as opposed to a productivity tool can actually work to keep them more productive. But I got another trick up my sleeve, which if you've seen Acumatica before, you'll never have seen this. This is a brand new thing that I, in my nerdiness, created for a person very similar to what our moms is doing or are doing on the computer. And this is the AP homepage. You'll notice here, there are no KPIs, there's no charts, there's no graphs, there's no nothing. This is actually just an image that is showing me, okay, here are the 8 things that I need to do in the system. And a lot of them are related to AP, some are related to expense claims, some are related to subs, but I'm not overwhelmed with a whole bunch of data. I can just see, okay, I need to code my AP bills. This is not a static image. This is something that will allow us to really take the next step and like do our processes within Acumatica. So if I need to code AP bills, I can click on code AP bills and it'll take me to a list of on-hold AP bills for me to then go in and code to a project. If I need to pay, it's that time of month, I click pay AP bills. That'll take me into my prepare payments list where I can then go in and say, okay, it's a check run, and which are the specific items that I'm going to pay in this check run, and I can actually pay those all in one fell swoop. Again, within a single click of this static image. Our moms will probably appreciate this. I don't know what your mom's personality is like, but my mom would, she'd find it funny, maybe a little offensive that I have a person with a cane on the AP aging view here. But for someone that is interested in looking at a report, it's not just going to take you to a processing screen. This can take you to a report for me to run where I can actually see my AP aging by project, and I could use the filtering here or just simply run that report and it'll bring up my AP aging by project very easily. Now, I'm not going to get too over the top here, but you could see with the hyperlinks here as well, you can actually use these reports to drill down further. So even for folks that prefer reports, Acumatica's got productivity tools in place. But this right here is a game changer for folks that are a little bit shy when it comes to technology. This right here is actually just I created this with a PowerPoint. It's an image that I dragged icons over. So this could say and look like anything you want it to, and then we can program the clicks within Acumatica. And this is something I did. I'm not the world's sharpest tool in the shed. I'm not even a consultant. I've never really fully implemented Acumatica in my life. I've gotten deep into it, but I've never really implemented it. And even someone of my limited level of expertise could figure out how to create clicks based on this so that this could become a homepage. So if you have folks in your office, you have folks in the field that are a little bit more tech shy, this can be in their language with their images. It can link to external things outside of the system. It really can be a platform that will allow your team to be productive and not intimidated by the technology, which is a big element of what an Acumatica implementation is, right? It's getting your team to not be afraid of the platform and to be willing to adopt it and excited to adopt it. And folks that are a little bit more tech shy can traditionally be a barrier to that type of change. But when folks see things like this and they fall into that category, that tends to actually excite them too, because then that gives them the ability to say, you know what, this is actually going to be easier for me than what I'm doing today. Even though I'm used to what I'm doing today, this clicks and I feel like I could do my job instantly with very little training. So this type of customization, the robustness of Acumatica and the technical ability of it, counterintuitively makes it less intimidating for folks that are a little bit less excited by technology is, I guess, the way that I'll put it.
Yeah, Mike, I don't admit defeat too often, but you changed my mind on the dashboard. So well said. What else can Acumatica, how else can it help?
Well, we talked a little bit about other productivity tools. In the last little couple of minutes that we have here, I can't even begin to cover 5% of the wonderful stuff that is here. This is really the tip of the iceberg. But like one other thing I'll talk about categorically is that so much of what folks are doing, especially if they're in QuickBooks and sometimes in other older accounting solutions, is they're doing a lot of what they need to do in Excel because the systems are just not set up to handle the reports that are just typically needed by construction companies. An example of that would be a WIP report. So like running a WIP report live based on data that's in the system, you'll see that this is giving me an industry standard WIP that will give me my contract amount, my estimated cost, my commitments, my actual, and then crucially, my billings in excess of cost and my cost in excess of billings, so I can do my WIP adjustment entries. And that's something that, if you're doing that in Excel today, especially if you're kind of more volume based as opposed to high dollar amount projects, sometimes this can take a lot of time, a full day or two for someone to compile a WIP report and make their WIP entries. This is something that can be run live at any time during the month and is live at all times. Plus, I actually have a WIP detail report within this. It's an embedded report. So if this like cost in excess of billings and billings in excess of cost looks odd or off, I can click into the WIP detail and see across all of my cost account groups, labor, materials, subcontract, other, all of those things. I have the ability to see how I'm performing in the same format from that WIP report across all of those cost account groups. And I could do that by cost code. I could do that by phase, but this will give me a little bit more granularity to say, hey, if my billings are way off and if like I have to do this huge WIP adjustment entry every month for these projects, let me actually do some investigation and see why that's the case. And that's what I was hinting at from the drill ability of these reports as well. The dashboards allow you to drill in, but so do these reports. That'll give you the ability to really be able to get to the bottom of things as you're doing your WIP adjustment entries at the end of the month or trying to bill during your billing at the end of the month. Now, one other thing that is really cool here is that we have the option for multiple different types of WIP calculation with the new revenue recognition standards put in place a couple of years ago. We're seeing a lot of construction companies move from using cost budget to projections to do their WIP calculations. And historically, cost projections have been done in Excel for a lot of companies as well. We'll know more because Acumatica will allow you to do this out of the box too. I can go in and create my cost projection worksheet and go in and say, okay, you know what, this cost projection is showing that for operations and superintendent, this is showing it 73%. If I copy this revision and want to make an adjustment here, let's see if I can actually do this. I thought this was open, so classic me. Stumbling at the finish line and even misspelling revision. You could see
You're
that
still in first place, Mike. You're still in first place. You got
it. So far ahead that I can stumble. That's fine. But you can see here, like this particular line item is well over. But if your PM knows, for instance, we're not getting a change order on this line item, we're just eating this, I can put in that is completed 100%, as unfortunate as that may be. And now that's going to be factored into the WIP calculation as it's released to affect the project. So, again, with all the stuff that we're talking about, all of this is just the tip of the iceberg. Acumatica has got a ton more to offer, a ton more that is built specifically for construction companies, even though it is a platform that applies to many different industries. Things like these cost projections, WIP reports, subcontracts, retainage are evidence of the fact this is purpose-built for construction. And there is a lot of different ways that this can improve the lives of construction companies that are looking to get onto something more scalable with transparent data, with the ability to report easily on things in the system. So I know we are kind of coming up on time and want to have some questions here, but like for me, this is really just the tip of the iceberg.
That's perfect. Mike, thank you for walking all of us through that. Definitely interested. You did a great job kind of running through the meat and potatoes and the robust functionality. So I want to thank you for that.
Yeah,
that's great.
My pleasure.
And maybe our moms could sync up after and have a conversation on the email situation.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Our moms seem like they're destined to be best friends. So I see we have a couple of questions in the chat. I want to make sure that we have given everyone an opportunity to go in and ask questions. I know we've got a number of attendees today. So if you're sitting in on the call now, I'm going to turn my attention to answering questions. Looks like we have 3 for now. But as I'm answering these questions, please use this opportunity to go in and ask specific questions about what Acumatica can do and how it could potentially help.
Absolutely. And Mike, it looks like the first question we have is, and I believe you'll be able to knock this out, is Acumatica cloud-based? And if so, will I be able to access while at a project site and communicate with our home office?
Yeah. Silly me, I should have mentioned that initially. It is a cloud-based product. It was the first product that was actually born in the cloud. There's never been a legacy deployment of Acumatica that then is now cloud hosted. That's probably more than you're looking to know, but like typically construction specific accounting packages have been server and on-premise based. And as the demand for cloud has come into play, a lot of those solutions have just switched to being cloud hosted, which means that you can access them through like a VPN, but they're not true cloud where it's browser based and the technology isn't as robust as a true cloud product like this. It is still the legacy technology just in a cloud environment. Now that said, if on-premise is preferable, and for some folks it is, Acumatica has flexible deployment options. So you can take the cloud offering here and actually deploy it on-premise if you want. But yes, in so many words, it is cloud-based. You can access it from anywhere at any time, from your office, from the job site, from a beach in Thailand if you're there, whatever you want to do.
Sounds nice. Nice. Next question, and thanks, Mike. Do I have to use a browser or is there an app?
So there is there's a app in the App Store that is compatible with both iOS and with Apple. iOS is Android, right? Android and Apple, whatever. And it extends all of the same data fields that are present here in Acumatica to the app itself. Now, we're looking at a whole bunch of stuff because I'm an administrator. You can pare down what people are seeing to a much more granular level, like only show them even just like RFIs, for instance, if you want. You can get down to that level of detail. And whatever you set up from a security preferences perspective at that level will be extended to them on the mobile app. So even people like our moms can use the mobile app and just use it in a very limited way without overwhelming them. Great. That's a fantastic question.
Perfect. No, thanks for answering that. Next we have, does Acumatica integrate with Procore by chance?
Acumatica does have an integration with Procore. Procore integrates with a bunch of different ERPs. Acumatica is tied for first, I would say, in terms of the quality of the integration. If you're a current Procore user, you can have projects come into Acumatica, the budgets come in from Acumatica, or vice versa, can push from Procore to Acumatica. And that really wonderful feature of the subcontractor portal where they can submit their pay apps, those AP bills can be pushed into Acumatica automatically, so you don't have to enter AP bills into Acumatica. But yeah, absolutely, there is a Procore integration.
Perfect. Perfect. And it looks like one of the final questions. Talk to me about payroll in Acumatica. Can Acumatica support that? How does that work?
Yeah, it does support payroll. That is hidden away here. I have a whole payroll module that's really built with construction in mind, and you can see evidence of that with certified projects and union locals. So I can handle not just construction payroll, but prevailing wage unions and all of that. So there is a full payroll module that works really well. And there are, for companies that want to outsource their payroll, there are some marketplace options, including MITRE, Workforce Go, and ADP Workforce Now that will integrate seamlessly into Acumatica from a payroll perspective. One quick other thing on a payroll perspective, some folks use things that are not integrated with Acumatica, like Paycom or other things that are out there. Acumatica can very easily import payroll from any of those systems. So if you like your payroll provider, you don't have to change it in order to use Acumatica.
Perfect. Perfect. Understood. And it looks like we just had a question come in from David Ballas. Can Acumatica be used as your sole accounting system?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is a full accounting package. It's got AP, AR, it's got finance, chart of accounts, it's got all of that. In fact, it has to be used as your financial package. It is not you can't just use it for project management or projects. It is a full accounting package that has to be used from a financial perspective in order to use any of it.
Perfect. Perfect. And a question from Brad. Help me understand the forecasting capabilities. Is that pretty robust, including the functionality?
Yeah, there is project budget forecasts that are present here. This is something that will allow us to look at the project budget and create periods of when we anticipate cost to hit in those periods based on the start and end date of the project tasks, and it'll look at the actuals compared to those. Sometimes like project forecasts can get a little bit complicated and nuanced in terms of the conversation. So would certainly love to have a conversation about that if that's something that's interesting to you, Brad. But the functionality from a basic standpoint, it is in the system. And I'd just like to understand more if that was something that was of interest to you.
Perfect. No, thanks for answering that. And we again, the whole point of this is to educate you, and show you the functionality of Acumatica. Again, you will be getting this recording. We would love to have a conversation one-off and kind of tailor it more to your needs and explore that further if interested. So, we will be in touch with the recording and everything like that, and would welcome one-off calls to connect with Mike and I. So, we do want to thank you all for joining today and taking time out of your busy schedule. If there's no other questions, Mike, I believe we're good to go and wrap up.
It looks like David had one last question on pricing. I won't give specific numbers, David, but just so you can understand the model, it's unlimited users. So you don't get nickel and dime for every user you want to add. It's based on the number of AP or AR invoices you process through the system in a given month, whichever number is higher. Only in my career, a few times have I come across a construction company that needs to be any higher than the initial tier, which allows for 3,000 transactions, either AP bills or AR invoices, typically AP, per month. Very rarely do people exceed that to start, but you get unlimited users. It's only based on those transactions. That's another great question.
Yeah, great question. Usage-based. Perfect. Okay. Perfect. Mike, anything else on your side?
No, thanks for the questions, guys. I really appreciate the interest and the participation. And thanks for letting me drone on for an hour here. I'm sure you're, my wife, after an hour of me talking her ear off needs a break. I'm sure you guys need a break too. So thanks very much, everyone.
Yes. Thank you all for joining today. Excited to pick up our conversations if you'd like to explore this further. And we hope you have the great rest of the day. So thanks, everybody, and we'll be in touch shortly.